You come here carrying a question, though perhaps you have not uttered it aloud. It resides somewhere behind your eyes, underneath your breath, within the low and steady ache that visits you in the silent hours. You are seeking not merely answers, but meaning, and that is no small endeavor. For those who only want answers are content with surface light, but those who thirst for meaning must first descend into shadow, into silence, into suffering, and it is there that we shall go together. You have been taught that darkness is evil, that what hides in the corners of your psyche must be cast out, cleansed, exorcised. But I tell you this now, not as theory, but as one who has stood in the abyss and conversed with its creatures. Your darkness is not evil. It is unmet truth. It is the part of you that was never allowed to speak, never permitted to feel, never welcomed at the table of your becoming. And so it waits patiently, persistently, like a dream that returns night after night, because it has not been interpreted. You fear your anger, you recoil from your envy, you deny your lust, you bury your grief, you smile when you wish to scream, you conform when your soul is howling to rebel, and then you wonder why you feel dead while still alive. Do you not see what you call your demons are often your dismembered angels? They appear monstrous only because you have forgotten how to see. The shadow, as I have called it, is not the enemy of your soul. It is the soul's longing to be made whole. The shadow contains everything you have exiled to maintain the mask you wear before the world, your persona. And the longer you uphold the mask, the more the shadow grows teeth. Not because it wishes to harm you, but because it must shout to be heard. It knocks on the doors of your sanity not to invade, but to return home. If you have dreams that disturb you of falling, of bleeding, of being chased, do not be quick to dismiss them. Dreams are the speech of the soul in the language of symbols. They are the nighttime sermons of your own unconscious. When a beast chases you in a dream, ask not, how do I escape, but rather, what part of me have I abandoned that now comes with fire in its eyes? Every nightmare is a messenger. Every fear is a threshold. And so I invite you not to resist your darkness, but to engage it. For it is only through relationship that the shadow is redeemed. What you repress becomes what controls you. But what you integrate becomes what empowers you. You do not become enlightened by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. And this is no metaphor, it is a psychic law. When you feel the surge of jealousy rise in you like a wave, do not shame yourself. Follow the thread. Where does it lead? Is there a part of you that feels unseen, unloved, unchosen? That is not sin. That is soul calling for reintegration. That is a forgotten child within you, still waiting to be held. When you want to lash out in rage, ask, what boundary of mine has been violated so long that I no longer believe I deserve peace? These are the sacred inquiries. Not, how do I rid myself of this, but what truth have I not yet met here? The descent into darkness is not a descent into depravity. It is a return to origin. Do you remember the myth of Inanna, the Sumerian goddess who willingly descended into the underworld, stripping away a piece of her royalty at each gate? until she stood naked before her dark sister Ereshkigal. Only in surrender did she gain the power of renewal. The ancient ones understood what modern man has forgotten. Transformation requires descent. You have been climbing the ladder of success, of virtue, of control. But ladders do not lead to wholeness. Often they lead only to thinner air and lonelier heights. What you need is not ascent, but a return to the belly of the labyrinth, to the place where the Minotaur waits. He is not your death, he is your initiation. And you are not Theseus here to slay him. You are Ariadne. Holding the thread, you must learn to walk back inward. There is an alchemy that occurs when light meets shadow, when the conscious mind, with all its logic and precision, finally sits with the unconscious, chaotic and raw. It is in this sacred tension, this holding of opposites, that the self is born, not the ego, not the persona, but the archetypal self, the center of your being that is both personal and cosmic, the Christ within the Buddha nature, the divine child. It goes by many names, but it is the same fire behind all eyes. And to reach it, you must go through your darkness, not around it. That is why your patterns repeat. That is why the same relationships collapse, why the same ache lingers beneath new dreams. Because you are trying to change your life without changing your relationship to your own truth. And the truth is not polite. It does not always affirm your ego. It does not always feel positive. But it is real. And the soul craves reality above comfort. You want to feel alive. Stop betraying your truth. Stop silencing your intuition for the sake of acceptance. Stop gaslighting your own gut every time you say yes when your body screams no. You deepen the rift between your conscious and unconscious self. You split, and that split becomes suffering. What the world calls mental illness is often the soul's rebellion against the prison of falsehood, depression, anxiety, addiction. These are not merely chemical imbalances. They are cries from the deep, invitations to listen. There is a woman I once worked with. Let us call her Elena. She came to me filled with dread, haunted by dreams of drowning. Night after night she saw herself submerged in dark waters, unable to breathe. Her cries muted by the weight of the ocean. She feared she was going mad. But I asked her, what have you not let yourself feel? Where have you stopped yourself from mourning? And she wept. For the first time in 20 years, she spoke of the child she lost and never allowed herself to grieve. Her whole life had been an attempt to stay positive, but her soul had not forgotten. Her dreams were the flood of unmet sorrow. When she allowed herself to weep fully, unashamedly, the nightmares ceased. Not because she conquered them, but because she heard them, because she met the truth within her darkness, and in doing so, she came home to herself. You must understand, truth is not always convenient. It often disrupts, it often dismantles, but it is the only path to wholeness. You were not born to be good in the way society defines it. You were born to be true. And your truth includes rage, desire, in sorrow, longing, and wildness. These are not flaws. They are the raw materials of your becoming What you repress does not die, it festers. What you deny does not disappear, it evolves in the dark, growing stranger with each rejection. And then one day it bursts forth, not as clarity, but as crisis. That is what a breakdown often is, the psyche's attempt to break through the suffocating order of the persona, and that moment of crisis. It is sacred, for it is the moment the unconscious insists on being known. It is your soul saying, I will not be buried beneath your masks. In that moment, you stand at the threshold of transformation. And your task is not to run, but to remain, to bear the unbearable, to allow the fire to burn away what no longer serves. Do not fear the fire. Fear the numbness. Fear the life lived in avoidance. Fear the smile that hides a scream. That is a slow death. The fire, at least, is alive. It purifies, it renews, it reveals. Do not be deceived into thinking healing is a soft glow or a gentle breeze. Sometimes it is an earthquake. The shaking of everything you built upon an unstable self-image. Healing is not becoming better than who you were. It is the revelation of who you have always been beneath the layers of adaptation, compensation, and self-protection. The wound is not the enemy. The wound is a wound through which the soul re-enters your life. We have all become actors in a psychic theater. We did not audition for, we wear the roles our parents handed us. The identities our culture rewards. The strong one, the pretty one, the smart one, the good one. And yet, beneath each role is the ache of the unlived life. The child who wanted to scream, the adolescent who wanted to disappear, the adult who wakes at 3 a.m. with a crushing weight they cannot name. That is the darkness I speak of. Not evil, not pathology, but a presence that says, remember me. You do not need to fix yourself. You were never broken. You need to recover yourself, to unearth the pieces you buried to survive. That is the holy task of the soul's journey, to make what was unconscious conscious, to walk with the shadow, not as adversary, but as companion. The shadow contains your rejected gold, your stolen fire, your holy defiance. The child who was punished for being too loud grows into an adult afraid to speak truth. The one who was shamed for their curiosity becomes cautious, conforming, silent. And this is how the wildness of the soul is tamed, but not destroyed. Never destroyed. It waits in dreams, in symptoms, in sudden outbursts you don't understand, in irrational attractions, in fantasies you're ashamed to admit. These are not flaws in your personality. They are breadcrumbs from the unconscious. Follow them. Let us speak now of the archetypes, for they are the eternal players in the theater of the psyche. You are not just you. You are inhabited by forces older than time. The mother, the child, the warrior, the trickster, the seeker, the lover. These are not mere stories. They are patterns of psychic energy, constellations of meaning, deep codes. In the collective unconscious, you dream of a lion, and though you have never met one, It stirs something primordial in your blood. That is the language of the archetype. One of the most feared archetypes is the destroyer. It appears when life must be torn down to be rebuilt. Divorce, job loss, illness, betrayal. These are not just events, they are initiations. The destroyer comes to unmake what was no longer real. And yet we resist it. We pray for safety, for comfort, for predictability, but the soul wants truth. And the truth is, comfort is often the coffin of becoming. When the destroyer archetype arrives, it is often cloaked in chaos. You feel like you're losing everything. But in truth, you are being stripped down to essence, and what remains after the storm, that is you, that is your soul's shape, when the world has nothing left to decorate you with. And yet, the opposite is also true. The lover archetype may come, and with it, a fire you haven't felt in years. You fall for someone you shouldn't. You risk something irrationally for beauty. You remember, desire, and it terrifies you because the lover wakes up the body. The hunger, the ache for connection, and the part of you that made peace with numbness panics, but the lover too is sacred. It does not come only to seduce, it comes to awaken what has grown cold in you. You see, these inner figures are not optional. They are the inner citizens of your psychic world. To exile one is to live a partial life, and the partial life eventually collapses under the weight of its own denial. I once spoke with a man, let us call him Marcus, who lived in rigid morality, always proper, always in control. A good husband, a good father, a good citizen, and yet he was dying inside. Quietly, respectably, he had done everything right, and yet felt nothing. He came to me in tears, unable to explain why he was having dreams of wild orgies and violent rebellion. He thought he was possessed, but I told him no. You are simply being reminded. The trickster in you has been buried alive. The lover in you has been muzzled. The warrior in you never learned to draw a sword. And now they rise not to destroy you, but to reclaim you. We work together not to extinguish the dreams, but to understand them, to honor them. He did not leave his wife, he did not abandon his life, but he changed his relationship to it. He began to write, to paint, to speak hard truths, to laugh again, and the dreams softened, not because they were fixed, but because he listened. That is all the psyche wants, to be listened to with reverence. Now, I must say this plainly. The path of integration is not safe. It is sacred, but it is not safe. Safety belongs to the ego. Wholeness belongs to the soul. And the soul, like the ocean, will sometimes drown you, to baptize you. You will lose friends. You will question everything. You will outgrow identities that once won you applause. This is not regression. It is evolution. Even Christ, before resurrection, descended into the underworld. Even Buddha sat under the tree and faced Mara's illusions. There is no transcendence without confrontation. There is no liberation without descent. And so if you are in darkness now, do not rush to escape. Ask the darkness, what have you come to show me that light cannot? And then be still enough to hear the answer. The voice of the soul does not shout, it whispers. And if your mind is too crowded with shoots and scripts and strategies, you will miss it. That is why solitude is essential. That is why ritual matters. To carve out space in the noise for the sacred, to speak. You do not need to be religious to be reverent. You only need to remember how to listen. Somewhere within you is a knowing, not of the intellect, but of the inner compass, a knowing that pulses in your chest, flutters in your gut, tightens your throat. You call it intuition, but it is more than that. It is the voice of your own soul remembering itself. But you have been taught to distrust it, to silence it in favor of logic, of consensus, of authority. And now you are here, hollow and haunted, wondering why nothing feels real. Because you have abandoned the very voice that was trying to lead you home. To walk the path of individuation, to become the self, is not to perfect the persona, it is to transcend it, not by erasing it, but by outgrowing it, by allowing what is deeper to take the throne of your inner world. You are not here to become someone. You are here to remember who you were before the world forgot you. There is a dream common to many, a dream of wandering in a forest, in lost, alone, the path overgrown. But in the dream, if one pauses, breathes, and listens, the forest begins to reveal itself. A light in the distance, a symbol carved in the bark, a guide in animal form. These are not fantasies. These are inner truths wrapped in mythic skin. Your psyche is a forest, and your darkness is not a threat. It is the soil. It is the place where roots grow, the place where forgotten parts of you still live. And if you are brave enough to kneel in that dark soil, to dig with your bare hands, you will uncover not horror, but holiness. There is no greater tragedy than to live a life divorced from the source of one's own being. And yet, this is the epidemic of our time. We know how to perform, how to obey, how to chase validation. But we have forgotten how to commune with the soul. We've become experts in image, novices in essence. And so we project, we throw our disowned parts onto others. We see the selfish one, the arrogant one, the seductive one, all out there. But rarely do we ask, why does this stir me so deeply? Whatever triggers you holds a mirror. The things that evoke strong emotion, whether attraction or repulsion, is rarely about the other. It is about you. It is your shadow in drag. It is your unintegrated energy calling from the stage of life, wearing someone else's costume. You say, he is so controlling, but where in you have you been too passive, too yielding, too afraid to assert your will? You say, she is so loud and inappropriate, but where in you does the silenced child cry out for a voice? This is not about blame. This is about power. Because what you refuse to own owns you. The work of individuation is not to become flawless. It is to become whole. To take back the projections, to recall the soul soldiers from exile, to welcome home the parts you tried to kill because you thought they made you unworthy of love. And what a lie that was. What a deep wound that seeded itself into you, that If you showed your anger, you'd be abandoned. If you admitted your desire, you'd be shamed. If you wept, you'd be weak. And so you crafted a self that was digestible, palatable, safe. But in doing so, you starved the wild truth within you. You became likable but lost, good but gone. And now here you are, feeling that ache again, that subtle whisper that there is more. That life is not meant to be a performance. That love is not meant to be earned through perfection. That the soul has been trying to speak through your dreams, your symptoms, your yearnings. You thought it was anxiety. You thought it was failure, but it was the soul knocking, not asking for healing in the way the ego defines it, no. It was asking for union. To unite with the shadow is to stand in fire without burning. It is to say, I will no longer exile myself from myself. And this is an act of tremendous courage, for it requires dismantling the scaffolding of false identity. It requires mourning who you were never allowed to be, mourning the years spent trying to earn love through suppression, mourning the masks you once believed were your face. Grief is not the enemy. Grief is initiation. It cleanses the psychic palate. It softens the ground so new roots may take hold. And beneath grief, if you sit with it long enough, you will find something unexpected. Grace. The grace of seeing yourself clearly, naked, unashamed. The grace of meeting the sacred wound, not as a curse, but as a chrysalis. Do not underestimate the symbolic power of your wound. For in that wound lies your myth, your medicine, your calling. The healer is not the one who has never bled. The healer is the one who has made art from scar tissue, who has danced in the ruins and returned with fire. You do not teach from your perfection, you teach from your wholeness. From the reconciliation of all that, you are not just the polished parts. Let me tell you something ancient. Something the modern world forgets. The soul is not linear. It does not move from A to B. It spirals, it cycles, it revisits old terrain with new eyes. What you thought you healed will resurface, not to punish you, but to be seen more deeply. Each return is an invitation to integrate more fully, to breathe into what was once unbearable, to love what was once feared. You are not failing because the pain came back. You are maturing. You are building the psychic muscles needed to hold more truth, to carry more light without denying the dark. This is the work of the mystic, the alchemist, the wounded warrior, to stand in paradox, to say, I am joy and sorrow, I am shadow and sun, I am infinite and terrified, and I am whole. In dreams, we often encounter animals, wolves, snakes, owls, bears. These are not random. These are the totems of your soul's language. The snake, for instance, terrifies many, but symbolically, the snake is the archetype of transformation, shedding skin, renewal. The Kundalini energy coiled at the base of the spine. So when a snake slithers into your dream, do not fear it. Ask what you are ready to shed. What outdated version of self is dying so the deeper self may emerge, or the wolf often feared as predator. But the wolf is also instinct, protection. the call to reconnect with wildness, to howl your truth, to return to pack or to learn solitude. These creatures in dream are emissaries of the unconscious. They come because your rational mind can no longer contain the fullness of your becoming. You may also dream of dying, of funerals, of crumbling buildings. These are not omens of physical death, but signs of psychic transition. Something in you is ending, some belief, some identity, some lie you once needed for safety. Let it be. Honor it, bless it, but do not cling. The soul makes no promises to preserve the ego. It promises only truth. And truth, my dear listener, is not comfortable, but it is liberating. And the moment you stop pretending, the moment you finally turn to face the truth you feared the most, you will discover it is not a monster, it is a mirror showing you what you abandoned in yourself. And behind that mirror is a door, and through that door the real work begins. You do not have to rush. This is not a performance, this is a pilgrimage. Each insight is a step, achterim, a guidepost, each trigger, a teacher. The journey inward is not always romantic, but it is real. And what is real can hold you when the world cannot. I want you to imagine now a fire in the center of your being, not a destructive fire, but a refining one, a fire that burns away the inauthentic, that illuminates the forgotten, that warms the hands of every part of you that has been waiting in the cold. Let that fire speak. Let it ask, what have you not said? What have you not felt? What have you not dared to desire? Let it crack you open, not to destroy, but to initiate into the sacred mystery of being fully human, fully alive, fully here. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not beyond redemption. You are ancient. You are sacred. You are a walking symbol, a living myth, and your darkness is the soil from which your sacred tree will rise. Let us now return to the beginning, to the moment before the first wound, the innocence that still lives beneath the defenses. You see, the child within you never disappeared. It adapted. It put on armor. It hid behind achievement, compliance, rebellion, silence. But the child is still watching, still waiting. And it is that child who feels your darkness most intimately, not with judgment, but with grief. You have tried to parent yourself with control, with rules, with numbing, but the soul does not need a tyrant. It needs a witness. It needs your presence, your permission to feel without needing to fix, to fall apart without fear of being discarded, to finally exhale after holding your breath through decades of spiritual performance. Sometimes the deepest healing does not come from revelation, but from rest, from sitting beside your fear like an old friend, from offering your sadness a chair at the table, from holding your rage like a sacred relic, not indulging it, not feeding it, but seeing it, listening to its story, because every emotion is a messenger. And if you silence it long enough, it will become a symptom. That is the language of the unconscious. It will speak softly at first, a tightness in the chest, a recurring dream, a fatigue that sleep cannot touch, but if ignored, it will escalate, panic, addiction, depression, until one day you are brought to your knees not as punishment, but as prophecy. Because only when you kneel can you hear the deeper voice, the one beneath the noise, the one that says, this is not your end, this is your entrance. Wholeness does not require the eradication of pain. It asks for reverence. The soul does not want you to win. It wants you to wake up. And sometimes it will use failure as the doorway. Sometimes it will break your heart open to show you the truth that your pride would never allow in. Do not curse the rupture. Bless it. It is how the light gets in. You may have been told to rise above your darkness, to transcend your pain. But I say to you now, descend, go down into it, because the treasure is never on the surface. It is always in the cave you fear to enter. And within that cave, you will find not just your shadows, but your sovereignty, your sacred knowing, the part of you that never forgot who you really are. Have you ever noticed how the mythic heroes, those who truly transform, do not escape suffering? They descend into it. Orpheus into the underworld, Psyche into the realm of Aphrodite, Christ into the tomb. The resurrection is not a bypass, it is a consequence of honest death. The death of illusion, of ego, of everything you use to protect yourself from feeling. And so I ask you now, with tenderness and holy urgency, what must die in you so that you may finally live? What belief? What story? What false identity? What lie must you bury to make room for truth? Perhaps it is the lie that you must always be strong, that love must be earned, that if you are truly seen, you will be left. These are the ancient spells cast upon your psyche by a culture that fears the soul. Break them, not with force, but with truth, with the trembling voice that finally says, I don't want to pretend anymore. That voice is your liberation. It does not sound like triumph. It sounds like breaking, but it is holy. It is the sound of your false self crumbling, so the true self can speak. And what the true self says may surprise you. It may not sound spiritual. It may not sound wise. It may sound messy, rough, angry, even impolite, but it will be real. And realness is the pulse of the soul. The real you is not perfect. The real you is sacred. And your darkness, when met with love, becomes the very doorway to the divine. The soul does not separate light from dark the way the ego does. To the soul, everything belongs. Even your most shameful memory holds a seed of transformation. Even the part of you you hate the most is a disguised angel. And when you finally turn to it, not to exile, but to embrace you, will see it change before your very eyes. Integration is the miracle. Not becoming someone new, but reclaiming all that you are. When the rage is no longer your enemy, it becomes your boundary. When the grief is no longer your shame, it becomes your compassion. When the desire is no longer your sin, it becomes your vitality. That is the alchemy of the soul. And this is what I want you to remember. You are already whole. Not in the way the ego defines wholeness as perfection, as success, as external harmony, but in the way the soul defines it, as the coexistence of opposites, as the sacred tension between light and dark, as the capacity to hold contradiction without collapse, you can be wounded and wise, afraid and brave, lost and still led. Your paradoxes are not problems. They are portals. Walk through them. Let them teach you how to live without abandoning any part of yourself. Because in the end, this is not about self-improvement. This is about self-remembrance. The soul is not something you earn. It is something you uncover, like an old manuscript buried in the dust of your own forgetting. And every time you say yes to your darkness, you turn one more page until, at last, the story begins to make sense. So here's my blessing for you. In this sacred hour, may your darkness no longer frighten you. May your grief become a sanctuary. May your rage find a righteous voice. May your dreams become your compass. May your wounds become your teachers. And may your soul, long silenced, begin to sing. And if you forget again, as we all do, if you fall back into the mask, the script, the performance, I remember this. The soul is patient. It will wait for you at the edge of every breakdown, in the belly of every sleepless night. In the silence between heartbeats, it will wait until you are ready to remember that you are not broken. You are becoming, and becoming is the holiest act of all,